off, thank you for being here. Thank you for jumping in and wanting to do this. We don't know each other, and it looks like we talk about a lot of the same stuff. So
I
I'm
bet.
excited
Yep.
to, I'm excited to dig in. Just real quick, I just really do conversational style things. I don't have a ton of questions. I looked through your media sheet. There's a bunch of stuff we could dive into. Um, there's a couple things that I'm super fascinated by. Selfishly, I do this to learn for myself.
I'm 100%, bro.
Like
100%.
this is for me to learn, and if I'm learning something, then I my assumption is other people will too.
That's right. That's
So we just
right.
we just jump in and get into it. I'm fascinated to hear your story because I have this newfound sort of theory that the bigger the person and the more tattoos they have, the softer they are.
I love
Is-
it.
that is my experience at this more, and I don't mean soft like we can't handle ourselves, but
Right.
darkness. There's this quote I saw. I have it on a T-shirt. It says, "Darkness is a hell of a coach," and
Mm.
that
Ooh, I
resonated
like
with me.
that.
It resonated
I
with me
lo-
for sure. Um,
I'm writing that one down, Keith.
it's good. I dig it. Uh, and it's just what I found. Like the more people I talk to that look like they've been through some stuff, they're usually more humble. They're usually more understanding. They usually got a little bit more. They definitely have more grace and compassion,
Mm.
um, because they figured it out, right?
Yeah, dude, I can absolutely relate with that. In fact, so this one here is truth, right? And then this one is grace, truth and
Nice.
grace.
I love it.
And for me, I love Jesus, and so I need
Same.
both, right? I need both truth and grace. But my when I first started my relationship with the Lord, man, I was total hardcore Pharisee and Sadducee, bro. I was totally
Yep.
legalistic, totally like, oh man, dude, I was had my holy robes on, my holy gavel, dude, judging everybody, and you know what I
Yep.
mean.
Yep.
And then God allowed me to go through. I call it the hell phase, and then and then He taught me about this the G
About the other
word
side.
called grace, and I'm
That
like, oh, minor detail.
That's hilarious. On this arm, I have the word obey, which was legit. Not necessarily in a religious connotation, but it was for me. Like I grew up in a pretty strict Catholic home,
Yeah.
and as soon as I was old enough to walk away from the church, I did.
Mm,
It didn't make sense. What I was being
right.
taught
Right.
didn't align with what was being done to me or what was being like. There was this tension there, and I just didn't vibe with. I couldn't figure it out.
That's
And
right.
I mean, it's so funny we're going in this direction because this wasn't in my notes, but like I returned back to church like 2.5 years ago, and
Wow.
it's been an extremely humbling experience to go, man, I spent the last 20 years just full of arrogance and full of pride and
Mm,
thinking I knew more than God and thinking I understood why there were perceived contradictions, and really just had to humble myself. And it's funny, my 8-year-old daughter, who's 10 now, for a year, Dad, can you take me to church? Will you take me to church? Can we go to church?
wow.
And I was just like, no, no, no. Like, I figure if I kick this thing down the road far enough, she'll let it go. And
Yeah.
she never did. And so I took her, and the first time we went back to church, it was just me and her. And I've got a big family. We've got 8 kids, and I've been with my wife 25 years. So I think we got some similarities there in the
That's awesome.
marriage thing. And it was just my daughter and I, and I checked her into the kids' wing, and they went and did their thing. And I sat in the back of the church and just cried and was like,
Wow.
what? Like, I'm home? And I'm pissed
Wow.
about it too. Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't want to be. I don't want to have to accept that I've had this wrong for so long.
Oh,
So I'm right there with you, man. I get it, and I think, I think sometimes you just know. Like I came across your profile and was like, I want to talk to this dude.
wow.
He's got some wisdom and some things, and you just connect, right? You just see somebody.
Yeah. That's right.
I feel like there's some things we
That's
could talk about. So
yeah, dude.
Yeah, man. So I definitely am in alignment with that. And I lived way too long in truth. And it was all about like, well, I'm not wrong, am I? But there was zero grace. Like, and it wasn't helpful. It's like I might be right, but is it helpful? is it,
Right,
am I being supportive or am I just being legalistic? I'm right.
right.
That's what
That's
it
right.
says. Yeah.
That's right, dude. I'll bust out a old school Gandhi quote, right? The big Gandhi. He said, "Man, I am all about uh, Jesus. I'm all about him. I'm just not all about his Christian, the
Yep.
followers."
So much.
Right? It's
Yeah.
we jack up. How many people have I met, dude, that like you, right, fallen away from the church, from their faith, da da da, but not because of who God is. It's because of all the jacked up people
Yeah.
that are representing Him that are ate
Yeah.
up like a soup sandwich. Um, and I don't mean that like there, but like here's another dude. Check this quote out. So I was talking to this big baller consultant. She's this big baller, multi-millionaire consultant lady, and for like 30, 40 years, and she's like, Noble man, like she's like, dude, you talk more about God, like you talk more about God and business in the same conversation than
Yeah.
anybody that I've ever heard before. And I said, well, that's how I live my life, right? As kind of one of the same. And he's like, and she's like, but and I hear you talking about the Bible and starting a relationship with Jesus and stuff. He's like, but she said, but why? She's like, my life is more dialed in than every Christian that I know, except for you. Like
Yeah.
every Christian that I know is miserable. and and
Interesting.
I, and she's like, and I'm happy. My finances are squared away. My relationships are squared away. My family's squared away. Like I got, I'm happy as a clam. Some of the most miserable people I know are Christians, and I'm like, man, like again, what a testimony. Like what,
Yeah.
1 John 2:6. Whoever claims to live in Him must walk as Jesus did. Like when people see me living, can they make a correlation like, man, maybe there's something different about this dude? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. And I think, it's so fascinating because it kind of leans into the topic we'll eventually get to, the emotional intelligence piece. Because I was talking to my daughter. I got a bunch of kids, and my oldest is 20, turns 24 on Saturday tomorrow, and she's getting ready to leave home, and she's going to travel, and she's going to do a bunch of stuff. And one of the things that she was concerned about is like where she travels to. How do I deal with like people who have different political ideas, or there's parts of the country she's maybe not wanting to go to because they don't align with her and her own beliefs. And I said, what's really fascinating and something I think that you'll discover is that you won't have a problem with people, like individuals. People are amazing. People suck. Right? Like
Right, right.
like all the different political ideologies and faith walks and cultures that I've dealt with on an individual basis, two, three, four small group people, I've never had a problem with a person.
Right.
And then you get into these camps, you get into these polarities and all this binary, it's red or blue or vax or no vax or mask or no mask or, you know,
Tattoos or no tattoos.
tattoos. It's like you just know, I watched The Office. Well, I don't like like it's like all of a sudden, like everybody's gotten so into like, I must be right. And if you're not with me, you're against me. And I'm like, for me, I really feel like it is a tremendous lack of the emotional intelligence to go, I'm secure in who I am, and I hope you're secure in who you are. Let's go grab a cup of coffee, even though I think that one idea of yours is fucking crazy.
100%.
Like,
100%, bro.
and so how do we get people like I love what you and I love what you do because I feel like it's similar to what I do. I mean, you're doing it full-time job. This is more of a outlet for me, but like moving people in that direction of like the middle ground, like the, I'm a Jesus follower, but I spend a lot of time in Eastern philosophy, and like the
Sure.
concept of like the middle way is very attractive to me,
Mm.
because and I think that's what Jesus taught was, I won't condemn you, and sin no more. Like,
Right.
I'm not gonna
Right.
condemn you, but like knock it off, right?
Right. Right.
Versus what I think so many other people are like is like, I absolutely condemn you, and cancel culture, which is something I'd love to hear your thoughts on. So I know I just threw a lot at you, but like,
Yes. So I think what's fascinating is that we did it in 2 years, right? In 2 years, we went now. Not to, like we're tribal, right? People are tribal, so
100%.
if as long as you look like me, like in fact, I did a video a while back, a year or two ago. Um, when the big black movement was going on, real hot and heavy with George Floyd and that kind of thing. Because I've got a truckload of black friends.
Yep.
When I was in North Carolina, like I was the minority, right? Most of my homies were black and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got tons of black friends. So but the thing is that racism is blacks versus whites versus blacks. Dude, racism has been going on since there's been two or more people, right? Cain versus Abel, right? I mean, you,
100%.
you know, right? This is, dude. Talk to my Dominican friends on how they dig Haitians and how much Haitians dig Dominicans, or call a Dominican a Puerto Rican,
Yeah.
right?
I spent
Right?
time in the DR, and they were explaining to me like, you can't go past this part of the island, and I was like, why not? And they're like, well, you'll get shot. And I'm like, y'all are on the same island, and it's the size of my backyard. Like, what are you fighting over? Like,
Right, but it's differences, right? It's differences. So there's
yeah,
no doubt that people and human beings are tribal. There's no doubt about that. That being said, I mean, since I've been alive, it is the first time since I've been alive where, since you don't look like me or walk like me or talk like me or dress like me or think like me, you are my enemy, and
yeah,
therefore, you need to disappear or whatever. It's the first time in my life, and to your one of your other points that you made, there's no doubt that the emotional health and emotional intelligence of the nation sucks, right? How many people have been trained on how to acknowledge, identify, process, and manage their own emotions and the emotions of other people? None of us have been trained on this stuff, but yet, lottie dottie, everybody has got feelings and emotions.
yeah,
And what's crazy is, so then you throw in a little, and again, I'm a business guy, so I get it, but the dynamic of the media, right? The media and social media. I'm sure you watched that documentary on Netflix on the social media, the social dilemma.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
and one of the quotes from one of the big giant social media executives is, false information, lies, sells. It gets 7 times more engagement than the truth does.
yeah,
So why on earth, if I'm a business guy and the only thing I want to do is make more money and buy more houses and buy more cars and buy more planes, why
yeah,
on earth would I try and sell the truth?
yeah.
Heck no, man.
It's crazy to me. I just read a article by Matt Taibbi on Substack, talking about fact checkers aren't checking facts; they're comparing narrative. And if it doesn't align with
Mm,
and they've admitted it, they've said, well, yes, the information here is factually true, but the people who are sharing it are controversial, and therefore we're afraid that the people reading it, or the people that are being exposed to it, aren't receiving it the way in which it was designed. And I'm like, so what you basically just said is people are stupid, and they're not able to critically think, which I think critical thinking is at risk. But I mean, they openly say we're not fact checking facts. The facts are accurate. It just doesn't align with the narrative that we're trying to push, which is
wow.
what you just said. Like, we're the lie sells, and the number of people I've talked to in the last year or two, and you're right, like, I don't think it's happened in 2 years. I think this was all sort of like bubbling over, and the circumstances of the last 2 years have given a lot of people permission
Mm,
to draw some lines in the sand that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise done. But I, like, the idea that, or the number of people I've talked to in the last 2 years who have said, yeah, I saw that article, but I didn't read it. I just read the headline. And I'm like, the amount of context and the amount of nuance that is missing in those 14 words in the headline,
Right.
it is
Right.
often like less than accurate. Is That's all you know. And you believe that to be the truth. You don't believe it to be possible. You believe it to be absolute. And
Right.
like that's sort of always been my thing is like once you start to formulate a belief, and I this was Eckhart Tolle that I read this from. He said, once you start to formulate a belief and you believe that X is true, then that means that every other option is untrue or not possible.
Right.
Like think of the arrogance in that. Think of the arrogance in that you know something is absolutely factual, even when you know like people on January 6th did bad things. But that doesn't mean that everyone who was engaged in some level of civil discourse committed a crime or tried to like there's nuance there, like there's gray, and we don't.
Well, so the dynamic, so what changes the dynamic of the fact that we're already, we pop out of the womb kind of semi-tribal, and that's maybe even not be accurate because like you see a black baby, a brown baby, and a white baby all playing together like it's nothing but a chicken wing on a string at Burger
Yeah,
King, right?
they're just hanging out.
It's that's exactly right. But so anyway, so there is some research and stuff based on the hey, we're tribal. Okay, so got it. But here's what changes the game. What changes the game is when you throw fuel on the fire. And from a human being perspective, what is fuel? What's gasoline? And that's emotion. So, and what's one of the most powerful emotions out there is fear,
Yeah,
right? Oh, big bald guys are going to give me some sort of disease of whatever Omicron, baldish, whatever, right? Whatever
yeah,
the thing is, and now all of a sudden, like, oh my gosh, I see a bald guy, like I'm going to get cooties from him, and I'm going to die. We're all going to die, and it's like you throw in fear, and here's the thing, I talk about this all the time, is that when you get, and this is physiologically, this is facts, right? Here's my disclaimer: I'm not a scientist, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a therapist, whatever. But here, based on 4 years of me researching this stuff, what happens is when we get emotional to the point that we get, so the extreme version of getting hit with our emotions is called emotionally hijacked. That's kind of the term. When you
okay,
get emotionally hijacked, you physiologically get dumber. And the reason why is because your brain, when it gets flushed, when the systems gets flushed with emotions, our brains go to survival mode, which is fight, flight, or freeze.
yep,
So you only have three windows in your, I've got the fight move, window, I've got the flight window, or I've got the freeze window. That's it. Those are the
yeah,
only options, right? When you get emotionally hijacked, and again, how many? So check this out. So something my wife just started to do. This is super interesting. My wife just started a podcast on Monday of this week, bro. Monday of this week, and she's already got 2,800 almost 3,000 downloads in five, dude, since months. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in 5 days, bro. And it's a podcast on how to think.
really,
Right. So when you learn, it's called Filter It Through a Brain Cell, is the name of the podcast. When you learn how to think and you learn how to manage your emotions, now Fox and CNN and MSNBC and all the big media power guys, to include the government, they can throw any kind of emotional drama and fear and, oh, bald guys are like whatever their fear stories
yeah,
are, right? And because now I know how to manage my emotions and think critically, dude, I'm not playing your game, right? I'm
yeah.
not, you
It's
know what I'm saying?
no 100%. I think it's really fascinating, and like the mental health, emotional conversations. In our business, my wife and I, we work with essential oils. We help families with health and wellness. we did a poll recently to ask if they wanted to learn, we're putting together our class schedules and things like that. We're like, you want to learn about, children and this or that, and we brought up emotions and mental health. And we did it intentionally because emotions and mental health, in my opinion, are the same thing. You can't have one without the other. More people wanted to talk about mental health than they did about their emotions.
Wow, interesting.
And to me, it was a bit of a interesting dynamic to go, okay, well, we're going to talk about emotions anyway, because your mental health is based on your emotions, right? But it's taken us a while to figure out sort of what that felt need is, because we've done a ton of work, and I think we live fairly well in this space. And I mean, we always can do better. We can always learn more. We can always increase our emotional intelligence. But the pandemic has not wrecked us the way that it's wrecked so many other people. And I think part of that was divine intervention on God's part in our own lives, because we've homeschooled our kids for decades. We're self-employed. So there's like these systems that are used to fill us up with fear that we don't play in. And so when everything started going crazy, we were like, well, all right, we're just at home like we've always been. We're working from home like we've always done. So, we did some webinars to help some of our friends. Like, here's how you homeschool if you want to pull out of that system. Here's how you entrepreneurial stuff. Here's how you work from home. Here's some things you can do to help work from home when your 5-year-old is bugging you and things like that. But we've been outside that system, and it's only been in like this last 8 or 10 months of this dynamic we've had that I
Yeah.
recognize, like, it is because we don't participate in these systems that I don't get inundated with the narrative. And I mean,
We're not in the matrix.
I'm not in the matrix. I'm not in the matrix. And like, I had a fairly, my in-laws and I would get along really, really well. And recently we had a fairly tense moment when I just said, guys, turn off the F and T, like, stop watching the news. Stop watching it. Oh, no, no, no. I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not trying to be cute. I'm telling you, like, it's impacting your mental health, because I can feel the panic and the fear and and there's nothing to fear. And it was fascinating to watch sort of the dynamics in that, and me getting triggered. I had to recognize I was getting angry, and it wasn't their fault. I was just like recognizing, oh, this is a thing that I do not allow in my life because I recognize its danger. And then
Mm.
here's these people I love who haven't gotten it yet. And how do I manage them into it gently instead of just yelling at them and going, just turn the fucking thing off?
That's right. That's
Because that's not
right.
helpful. That's, shaming them into it isn't going to work. Um,
Right. Right.
so yeah, I mean, what's the, like, talk about the pandemic a little bit, because I know that that's one of the things that you've kind of really paid attention to, is like, I mean, it's messing people up.
Here's the other dynamic, Keith. That's so in using your scenario there. Hey, just shut the TV off, guys. Dude, there's an addictive power to fear and to certain emotions, right? There's an addiction to it, and 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 this part, what I'm about to say, is above my pay grade. But when you live in that, when you start to allow yourself to swim in the emotion of, in this case, fear, long enough, it it will do some changes where now that is your reality. And so, but here's the tough thing is, when you have this new emotional, a reality based out of emotion and fear. So you just created a new matrix for yourself that is fear, and based on fear, your whole world, all your decisions, all your thought process, all your responses, everything is based on that, the matrix of fear that you've created for yourself. When you see someone else, when they run into a Keith or a Noble, who, wait, why are you not,
Right.
like, I can't, like, wait.
Yeah.
Did you realize that you're actually going to die, and not only are you gonna not only are you gonna die, you're gonna kill everyone else around you because you don't have a mask on right now, or you don't have the 13 vaccine boosters. That's whatever the latest update
Yeah.
is, right? Like you, like I just, and here's the thing, we just encountered one of these people on the bus when we went snowboarding last week, and I mean, dude, it is like she, so we got on this bus, and you know, I don't ever wear a mask. I've never worn a mask, unless I'm on a plane because I have to. But outside of that, like, and dude, this lady, like, she started off unhinged, right? Like, at a 10, there was no like, hey, excuse me. It was like she literally freaked out on the bus. This
Wow.
packed out bus, dude. We are packed out. And oddly enough, and they had also just that same day announced that the mask mandate is no longer effective
Yeah.
or in effect, which means evidently that the virus has disappeared all of a sudden, or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
the things are.
The logic has been, done for months
Right,
and
dude.
months and months.
Right. No, the lot. So, but what's funny? My point is, like, when like, this is what I'm trying to say. Whenever you try to have a logical, rational conversation with somebody that is emotionally hijacked, it is going to be lose lose every single time, because by definition they're emotionally hijacked. There is no logical
Yeah.
communication or logical thinking from somebody who is emotionally hijacked and has created themselves that matrix, that infrastructure of fear, right? It's so anyway, it's and what's amazing is, because it's the you want to talk about the contagious, let's talk about something that's contagious, dude. Let me tell something that is 1,000 times more contagious, bro, than the coronavirus, is fear,
Yeah. 100%.
bro.
It's
Bro,
insane. I'll share this with you. Um, Two things come to mind. One, if you haven't read it yet, Ryan Holiday's new book, "Courage is Calling," is a great book. Um, Speaking about contagions, because courage, he talks about how courage is contagious. But the fear thing, I had this experience early on, and we don't live in fear, and we've navigated the pandemic with compassion. So I follow rules when I feel like I need to be respectful, but understanding that I'm just making that choice out of respect, not out of any, you know, logical other reason. Um, like from a relationship standpoint.
sure.
And I remember going to the store early on, and as I walked in the store, there was no barricades, it was just a regular entrance. I walk in the store, there's probably about 60% of the people are masked, and I'm doing my grocery shopping. And this was early, like April or May of last year, before everything shut down, maybe March, before everything shut down. There's still a ton of questions. We didn't really know. And so I do my shopping, and I'm watching everybody start like really keeping distance, and like behaviors had changed. Go about my business. I leave the store. I'm loading up my groceries in my car. And I look back, and the entrance that I went into an hour ago now has all these bike rack barricades, and they've created a one-way in and a one-way out in the morning time that I was there. And I got like this tightness in my chest, and I was like afraid. And I was like, what am I missing? Am I missing? Is there something happening I don't know about? Why are they barricading the store? Why is there? And I caught myself. I'm like, okay, wait, what has changed in the last 60 minutes? Not a damn
Wow.
thing. Nothing.
Wow.
But like just that visual was enough for me to go, whoo, and I feel like I'm relatively and aware uh,
Yeah.
of my emotions and how I feel. but it was like I was like anxious. I had this total anxiety hit of like the world's ending, and then it was like, whoa, back up. It's still Tuesday, the sun's still out, the military's not showing up, nobody's falling over in the street. What's happening? And I went home and I shared that experience with my wife, and I said, we need to be mindful of what's real and what we're seeing, because what we're seeing isn't what's real. We're
Mm,
seeing these things and these people acting in ways that, again, you go back to like individuals. If you sat down with somebody at any number of these places and said, hey, walk me through your mandate, walk me through your policies, walk me through the logic behind it, they'd be like, I'm just doing my job, bro. I don't have a clue. Well, we got to stop living by default, man. We got to like, what's the intention behind this? And without getting into like conspiracies and stuff like that, because I don't, I don't ever pretend that I'll know what, how coordinated or intentional or any of that is. For me, it's like just all I can do is control how I show up, how I raise my kids, what I do there. And so I really feel like conversations like this are super important to help people recognize like that's what you can control. You can choose out of fear. You can decide, I'm not going to be afraid. I'm going to keep doing my thing. And I feel like, and maybe you can speak to this because um, I feel like over the last, not just 2 years, but over the last 25, 30 years, we've spent intentionally or otherwise in a lot of ways convincing the individual that they are dumb or they are not capable, and that if I need to do something, I have to talk to my doctor, my teacher, I have to get permission from my priest, whatever it is, right? Like, and I've discovered this has been a journey since we had my fourth kid that my wife and I had, we had at home. And that was like, there's no effing way I'm having my kid at home. That was the most foreign idea to me. And then as I started doing research and started understanding the business of being born, I was like, yo, my grandparents were born at home. Like, why is that such a thing? And why am I so disempowered to do something God created me to do? Right? It just didn't make any sense.
bro, how were people born before there were hospitals?
Right? It makes
You know what I'm saying? Like,
in my
and a
head, I
third,
was like, we have to have a doctor.
right? And a third of the world, a third of the world, still to this day,
Yeah.
guess what? Right?
Yeah.
100%. We did it at home too, and it was the most amazing thing on the planet. She had like we did the pool, the little pool deal, just when she was in labor
Yeah.
and stuff. When she was like push mode, she got out of it, and dude, she had the kid, and our midwife did her little checks, doom, check, weigh, measure, and dude, in 2 hours, it was me, my awesome wife, and our kid chilling on the couch, bro, and we
Just
were happy as a clam, bro,
just the way
chilling.
God intended it, right? But somehow we've gotten into this place where we feel like we are incapable of making normal, regular human choices. And so I guess my question is, if there's a question there's, is that a lack of emotional intelligence, or is there a way that we can develop that sort of mindset back out of that?
So another topic that I'm passionate about a few topics. I'm passionate about God. I'm passionate about family. I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm passionate about people, and I'm passionate about homeschooling. And we've been homeschooling now for a decade. Well, so I got this is gonna open up a can, but uh, there's so much programming. So I'm a public school guy. I went to public school, and
And
then I went to the government school of all government schools. Right? I went to
yeah, I
West
mean,
Point, right, which is
I was gonna
the
say we should talk about like you're a military guy, so you're not like anti-America, like
no,
West Point grad, Army.
right. That's right. Yep. It was
Yeah,
an airborne school, Ranger school, did all, 82nd Airborne Division, all the stuff. But the thing is, right, what does public school teach us? And again, I'm a public school guy. What does it teach us? It te- It prepares, and anybody who wants to research public school, go research the history of our public school system. It's not, this
Yeah.
is not conspiracy and, oh, Noble's doing some fringe. Look it up. The history of our freaking American education system
Yeah.
is to create and stamp out followers, soldiers, and factory workers.
Yeah.
And think about all the how our country, nation, people are, how we have, how technology has evolved, all this kind of stuff. What's the only thing that hasn't evolved in 50, 100 years is our education system.
Yeah.
It's the exact same. And when why though? Because
The
they're
methods are different. They've added computers, they've added certain things, but like the the why behind the what has not changed.
we're still stamping out followers
Yeah.
and soldiers and factory workers, so to speak, right? So
Yeah.
because think about this, when our country was founded, 90 some percent of the people were entrepreneurs, and the ones who
Yeah.
weren't entrepreneurs were apprentices to learn how to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well, today
I mean,
it's
it used to be
complete
your name, right? It used to be like you were Smith because you were a blacksmith. Like you would take on your parents'.
locksmith, right? Yeah,
Yeah, it
whatever.
was like those things. I don't know if you've ever read Dumbing Us Down by John C.
Oh,
Crotty.
bro, come on, man.
Like
Oh
my spirit
yeah.
animal. Like when because that's what you're preaching, right? Like
100%.
when you get the letter from Andrew Carnegie that says we have too many producers in society and we need to create consumers, and then you look at where we're at 100 years later, like you can't, it's impossible to say this isn't what is happening. And that was the book, that was when we got into homeschooling. My wife has always been very intuitive and very with her gut. Like she's like, I don't want to take a COVID test because I don't trust it. And I'm like, well, what is that based on? She's like, my gut. And I'm like, it doesn't hold a ton of water in, like some conversations, but your guts led us pretty well. When she came to me and said, I want to pull the kids out of school and homeschool them, I was like, you're out of your ever loving mind. Like, I was a public school kid, I have a college degree. Like, that's the path. How did they get jobs? How did they do this? How did they do that? And again, it's always been that thing for me where I've always been a researcher and said, okay, well, I had never once thought about how did we all end up going to this building in this space that kind of looks like a prison. And so I started reading and I started looking and I was like, and then you find out that like there were riots in the streets when they said you must send your kid off to school. And you're like, how do we get here? And so, it took me that book and another book that he wrote called Weapons of Mass Instruction. And I was done. I was like, this is a system. And I'm not one of those that's like we need to abolish public education, because there are lots of families that are too
Sure.
in it and they couldn't do it at this moment. But my wife and I've made some choices that they're sacrifices. Kids, we watch all of our friends on August 1st, kids off to school, I got the day to myself, and my wife and I are like, well, you take those three, I'll take those three. We don't have time to ourselves. We don't get that unless we're super intentional about it. But at the same time, like, it breaks my heart to watch all those people celebrating their kids being not a part of their life for a large chunk of time, because it's like, man, I only got them for really 15, 16 years, because by the time they're 16 or 17, there's not a whole lot more I could pour into them.
Well, dude, so 100%, right? And that's just one aspect. So I 100% agree with you, dude. Do you want more family time or less family time, right? When you're on
Yeah.
your deathbed, like, man, I really regret all that time I had with my kid, right? Like, whoever says that? So that's one thing. The second thing is, it's 18,000 hours. If you go to public school, from kindergarten to 12th grade, and maybe my 18,000. No, I think I'm pretty sure that's to high school. I was thinking if it was extended into college, but I think the 18,000 hours is just through K through 12. 18,000 hours.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that they are not picking up some mindset and thought process and training
100%.
with 18,000 hours. And here's another thing that's crazy. So you got, I'm sure you're familiar with the 10,000 hour rule,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right, all that stuff, right? So
yeah,
the book Talent is Overrated. There's a lot of great books. So I had 18,000 hours in public school. You had 18,000 hours in public school. What did we come out mastering?
yeah. Trauma.
Nothing.
Trauma. That's what I
Right,
meant.
right, right.
Yeah,
And so and,
100%.
and so I learned how to shut up. I learned how to, when a little bell rings, I learned how to,
Yeah,
oh, that must be my time to, I get
yeah,
5 minutes to go to the next class, sit my next class. Oh, the bell ring. Oh, that must be lunchtime. I guess I'm hungry now at
yep,
11:45. Right. So there's a lot of programming. And again, don't tell me that you spent 18,000 hours doing something that you're not getting programmed.
yeah,
I don't need some PhD to tell me, right? So
yeah,
you know what I mean? So and honestly, so that's one of the reasons why we chose the homeschool is, number one, we wanted to instill for us, we want to instill biblical principles. Number two, we wanted our kid to learn how to think, so to learn how to think critically. And number three, we wanted to teach her how to be an entrepreneur because we've been entrepreneurs for 25 years, and we want to teach our
yeah.
kid. And they don't teach entrepreneurship in public school. I mean, in
No,
college they're starting to do that, but like some
well,
eighth grader, seventh graders not learning how to do that. By the time she was 11, she'd already had 4 businesses,
yeah,
right? So that and so the outcome, the product that we were wanting to create, so to speak, in terms of when our kid was graduating, was a biblically founded, biblically principle based, critical thinker who, if she wanted to have her own business, she would already know how to do that.
yeah,
And thank God we've homeschooled,
yeah.
because we're on track. She's got 4 more years and she'll be done, but she's on track for that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, I love that because that's the choices. That's the choice that we made early on. The biblically founded part was not a part of that. Um, it was the different journey. But I'm curious because I read somewhere, I was trying to find in my notes, but you had read you one of the things you talk about is like what what did your childhood teach you, right? And it's one of the topics that you often talk about. And this aligns with that because like I look at my time in school was not emotionally stable. It wasn't safe. It wasn't, and it's not that things need to be safe because I'm all about being at the edge of your comfort zone. Like you should be slightly uncomfortable all the time,
But that's different than safety, bro.
but it's different than safety, right? So like, because I hear people go, "Oh, well, I won't do that because it doesn't bring me joy," and I'm like, "Well, that's great, but
Right.
growth doesn't happen in a joyful space. You got to
100%.
get outside of that like mentality, but you should be safe. You should feel as if because like one of the things I talk about a lot is vulnerability and how you can't be vulnerable unless you're willing to get hurt because you're gonna get hurt even if it's just unpacking some things and coming to some realizations. Hurt doesn't have to be bad. It can be part of that growth process, right? And so I'm really curious, like, what your thoughts are, like, because there's, and it's like we talk about all these things, and my mind is racing. But Gay Hendricks wrote a book called The Big Leap, and in that book, he says talks about upper limits and limiting beliefs and all these things, and he says in that book that children are perfect observers and imperfect interpreters. So we see all that stuff happening, right? So people will tell you, well, no teacher is teaching a child to break his spirit. No, they're not teaching them that, but they're showing them that. They're modeling that behavior over and over and over. Creativity is bad. Get in line and do what you're told. Don't question authority because it's a fool's errand kind of thing. So we're not teaching them that verbally. It's not in any textbook anywhere, but it kind of goes back to like A Few Good Men, right? Like, show me in the book where the mess hall is. Well, it's not in the book. You just know where to go eat. Like, so show me in the book where it says that you're a worthless C student and that's all you're going to be. Well, it's not in the book, but that's what you've taught me for 12 years.
Boom. Right. So one of the other things that you learn in public school system is that an F is bad. Well,
Right.
what
Failure is
what
bad.
right? right? And as an entrepreneur, we've been entrepreneurs for 25 years. Dude, as an entrepreneur, dude, failure is my professor.
Yeah.
Failure is one of my courses. That's not
Yeah.
why is that that's not bad for me. That's how I freaking stay alive is and feed my family is by failing. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, I must
Yeah.
need to do it this way. Oh no, not that. Well, that partly worked. Okay, so let me keep it right. So as an entrepreneur, bro, failure. And so we what we started doing is when our daughter was like 3 or 4 in our house is we celebrate failure. One of the things that I said I had a nightly routine with my daughter when she was a little kid. I call it cuddle ops. And during cuddle ops, when I
Yeah.
tuck her into bed and stuff, we'd cuddle in bed, and I say, okay, Amor, I'd ask her a series of questions, and one of the questions I'd ask her is, how did you fail today? And if she didn't have an answer for me, okay, well, let's go fail at something right now. Let's go fail at something,
Yeah.
right?
You
And I
trying
said,
if you didn't fail.
right, and then I said, okay, now what do we learn? What do we learn from that, right? And I want to take the bite out of failure, the pain, the bite. No, failure, it's
Yeah.
just like emotions, right? We've been taught emotions are bad and good. No, no, no. Emotions are just data. It's just information.
Love it.
It's just signals, right? It's a. But most of us have never learned to read our P&L statement, our profit and loss statement, our balance sheet of emotions. So we think, these ones are bad ones, and these were good. No, 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 no. It's just data.
Data.
What
Yeah, I
what
love that.
you know what I'm saying? What is this data
100%.
teaching us and informing us? You know what I'm saying?
No, that's so good. That's I love it because first of all, I love the term cuddle ops, and I'm totally taking that from you. Um, because that is so good. And I mean, I almost lost my marriage over fail. I mean, a couple of reasons, but one of them was failure because we got into an entrepreneurial situation where I was really struggling to find my identity. And through the course of this business failing, I kept I kept hanging on. I mean, I didn't get paid for like the last 6 months that it was in existence because I kept telling my wife, I can't let this fail. I can't let this fail. Instead of going, because if it failed, I was a failure. And instead of going, man, this thing fell apart fast. Time to move on. Right. I was idle. I just had it was all these different layers and so one of the things now that we do in our entrepreneurial stuff when we talk and we bring on new business partners is you have to learn how to fail fast. Failure is not a a bad thing, right? And that was another reason why I wanted to homeschool. I was like, the last thing I want to do is start to give my kids arbitrary letters to define their self-worth because it has nothing to do with it. Like, and it's such a fascinating thing. So what are your thoughts on like how do we move people past that into like releasing the shame of whatever that was that they went through, because all of us have trauma, all of us have stuff. Some of us drank, some of us weren't good husbands, some of us were too violent, some of us whatever, are dyslexic. I don't know. I mean, it runs the gamut, right? And some of us have poor political beliefs that we've changed or whatever it is. But like, I feel like I honestly think, for me, from my perspective, the idea of cancel culture is why people don't honor their mistakes, own their mistakes. Because like, if I say I was an alcoholic, I didn't honor my marriage, I wasn't present for the first 3 or 5 years that we were married, and I almost, like, if I say that now to some of my quote unquote woke friends, it doesn't matter that the last 15, 18 years of my marriage have been really good. What matters is that I had to remarry. I had to do my vows over with my wife and go, you know what? I've not honored these. Can I get a do over?
Yeah.
And she had the grace to give me that. And so many people would have said and did tell her, you should leave him. You shouldn't stay with him. You shouldn't,
Mm.
this is bad. And if it was that situation today, I can almost guarantee we wouldn't be together.
Right.
And I just don't know how we help people recognize like how flawed we all are
Yeah.
and how much easier it is to go, okay, I screwed up. Let's figure out how to fix it. Let's figure out how to work through it instead of just all right, I'm done with you. I'll go find someone else, and somehow think that they're gonna not screw up, or I'm gonna not screw up.
Right. That's right. Yeah. So my thoughts is through a couple things. One is through modeling. So we have to demonstrate it. Oh
Mm.
well, I don't hey, Keith, well, I don't like bald guys. So the fact that you're bald, man, it's not my jam. But dude, let's keep hanging out and talking. Like I can, I can see, or I don't like guys with black rim glasses. I only like guys with white rim glasses. Like,
Well, I
you
can
know,
change. I have some clear ones if that's better.
right. Right, but we still hang like, dude, Jesus, man, he hung out. That's why I love that dude, right? Because he hung out with
Yeah,
the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the
prostitutes and the murderers and
this guy hung out. He hung out in the bars, right? And
yeah,
it's like he says, right? I didn't come for the healthy. I came for the sick. I came for the people that
100%.
are jacked up. You know what I'm saying? So like this whole concept of like, so anyway, so modeling is one thing. That is one way to do it, is to model the behavior that is healthy and in my opinion, and the golden rule, right? Love your neighbor. And so but the second thing is, for me, one of the things that I'm trying to do, right, is to teach people how to increase their emotional intelligence and uh, and learning. So the younger generation, especially over the last couple of years, right? Emotional health and mental health and stuff has never been talked about more in history because of, since COVID and all that kind of stuff, the last couple of years. So a lot of people have become self-aware of, oh, like, oh, I'm feeling some kind of way, whatever, which is great. But here's the psychologist, 40-year-old, this 40-year psychologist said it is actually unhealthy to only have self-awareness and not have any self-management skills, not have any self-regulation skills. It's actually more harmful. So if you don't have either one, which was me, I didn't. 4 years ago, I was completely emotionally clueless. I had no self-awareness. I had no self-management tools. So for me, I started my growth journey learning both at the same time, learning my self-awareness. Okay, well, how am I feeling, all this kind of stuff, but also, okay, well, how do I regulate? How do I manage my emotions? Not just, oh yeah, I'm aware that I'm sucking like a Kirby vacuum, and I'm just going to suck like a Kirby vacuum. Like, but now how do I handle these uncomfortable, unpleasant, intense emotions? Well, it's like jits, right? I do jujitsu, and yeah. So if you and me are rolling, and you don't know how to roll, you're gonna be look kind of stupid. Like, dude, I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna hug you, which is what I did when I first started. I was like, I just know how to hug you, bro. Like, that's all I got. Right? That's my only move,
right,
right?
right.
And so, but when you and what happens is when and we call it the white belt as for people that are doing jujitsu, like there's the white belts, they come in with their survival mechanism, which is fight, flight, or freeze. When you're engaged in that kind of one-on-one combat, I call it combat cuddles. What happens is you get into that emotional state of, oh crap, I'm in combat with this guy, and obviously you signed up to fight, so you're in fight mode. But they immediately, so many of them do, start to immediately hyperventilate and use all their muscles. And I'm like, hey guys, look, I'm literally twice your age, and my blood pressure hasn't gone up at all, bro.
Right.
Right? I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm cool as pond water right now, bro, because my breathing is calm. Right, and when you do that, right, I'm in control. I said, I can think of 100 moves I can do right now. You're only thinking of one move you can do right now, and that's hugging me or whatever you're trying to do to me right now. And
Survival.
and right, but that's a life principle. When you learn emotional jujitsu moves, when this emotion comes at you, anger, when the anger move comes at you, or the sadness move, or the depression move comes at you, I know how to handle when I'm trying to get, if Keith's trying to rear naked choke me, I know how to defend that, so I'm not going to spaz out.
Yeah.
Okay, God. Oh, he's going for rear naked. Oh, he's going for an armbar. Okay, here's how I defend that. Oh, he's going for a Kimura. Oh, here's how I know how to defend that. When you know those moves, there's no stress. right?
Yeah.
You can go through that role life calm, cool, because you know how to deal with those moves.
Yeah.
If you don't have that emotional jujitsu, dude, you're going to stress out over the smallest stuff, to mask or not to mask, to vax or not to vax. I know that move, so I'm not going to stress out.
Yeah. What do you say to people, or let me rephrase that. I guess because what I guess I'm hearing you say is, one, it's okay to have the feeling. It's okay to have the emotion, right?
Dude,
But
100%.
because it's like, I know how to defend against this, but what you didn't say was eliminate, right? I know how to defend against it. I know how to allow it in. Let me roll with you for a minute, and then I'm going to push you up out the way, and I'm going to move on, right? And so there's this concept out there, I think, culturally, that like, we that which does not bring me joy, I'm not going to give any energy to. And it's like, well, that's cute. That makes it great for a great meme, but let's apply that in real life. Because I've got a 3-year-old who at midnight last night started throwing up. That does not bring me joy. And
Right.
every 60 to 90 minutes until 7 o'clock this morning, she threw up.
Oh,
Does not bring me joy. But you bet your ass that I leaned into that and cuddled on her and loved on her and just said, hey, let's figure this out. And that's how we bond, right? And so, like, this idea that like I can't do anything if it doesn't bring me joy would lend someone to believe then that if I feel sadness, depression, anger, frustration, intimidation, now all of a sudden I'm failing at my stated goal of living this peaceful life. And so then it's like it's almost like we have to normalize the information. And you said this earlier, like, it's just data. Like, and if you can look at it that way, you can go, okay, this is sadness. What caused sadness? And I probably can't eliminate that, because like I can't eliminate my daughter who brought me anger from waking me up in the middle of the night. So how do I manage that? How do I look at that and go, okay, well, yes, I'm angry, and
so a couple things. So the quick answer is anger is always a secondary emotion. It's always a secondary emotion. It's never the emotion. There's
okay,
always something that you felt that led to the anger. So that's really important. And just knowing that, okay, I'm angry right now. Okay, well, there's something led to that. So what was that? So that's number one. But I've got a little system that I talk about and teach, and whoever will listen to me, I call it Go Aped, APED. The reason I call it Go Aped is because I use the analogy when I was we all, so a couple of things about our childhoods to kind of go back to that one is everyone leaves their childhood with emotional baggage. Everybody, lottie dottie, everybody. Even if you had leave it to beaver childhood, you still
yeah,
have emotional baggage.
100%.
The second thing about childhoods is all of us, 100% of human beings, learn and get our emotional foundation from our childhoods. Period. Good, bad, traumatic, not traumatic, doesn't matter. All of us, our emotional foundation comes from our childhoods. Okay, so that's that. For me, in my house, my mom's a 4'10" little Hispanic lady. My dad was a big giant white guy. So I popped out looking like my dad, but my mom raised me speaking Spanish and stuff, so I can habla and everything. And in our house, my mom, we call her the Tasmanian Angel because she's the only grandma I know that actually wears out the grandkids. Like she does 2 a days of
Love it.
Zumba. She's hard as woodpecker lips, man. She's no joke. And so the way we handle conflict growing up as a kid was we'd yell and scream at each other, and whoever yelled the loudest won. And then we all get upset and pissed off at each other. We'd all stomp off in our respective corners of the house, come back an hour later, and literally act like nothing happened. Like, oh hey, what's for dinner? Oh hey, who's playing on the in football this weekend? Like, completely no acknowledgement of feelings and emotions, zero conflict resolution, zero apologies,
Right.
nothing. Right?
Everybody go away, pack it all up in a bag, stuff it down, and come back to
Boom.
the table.
So I could write books on how to stuff, avoid, stew, and brood. I've got PhDs in that stuff, bro. Right? I know how to stuff and
Yep, yep.
avoid all day long. So boom. So that's how I became an adult, having no concept of emotions and feelings. I
Yeah.
learned as a kid how to stuff all that down. Okay, so now here's so now when you're a kid, when you're 2 and 3 and 4, and see, here's the other thing too. This We experience emotions before we have the language to express them.
Yes.
You're 1, you're 2, you're experiencing emotions,
Yeah.
right? But you don't have the words to know. Oh, I feel frustrated right now. Well, you don't know,
Yeah.
right?
No,
So, but
you're
when you're
3
a
and you just
kid,
throw stuff.
that's exactly right. So as a
Yeah.
kid, stuffing and avoiding, it was a cute, furry, fuzzy little monkey that I would lock in the basement, right? So every time I'd get an emotion or emotional injury, I'd feed the little monkey and lock him back in the basement. Well, when you do that for 4 decades of stuffing and avoiding, emotional injury on top of emotional injury on top of emotional injury, pretty soon that cute, furry, fuzzy little monkey turns into an 800-pound gorilla that I can no longer control in the
Yeah.
basement. And I yelled at my wife 3 times in 3 weeks 5 years ago, and she said 3 things. Don't ever do that again. You've never done that before, which means you got more issues than Time Magazine,
Yep.
right? And so boom, went to counseling, and the counselor introduced me to 2 revolutionary new concepts called feelings and emotions. And I was like, what is this? Like, dude, is this some Harry Potter voodoo
Yeah.
sorcery business?
What
Like,
is
what are you
this
talking
new
about?
thing you're
Right. So anyway, and so the go ape thing. So that's how the ape, right, from a cute fuzzy little monkey to an 800-pound gorilla. So when you go ape, this is an emotional exercise that I encourage lottie dottie everybody to use whenever you want to. This is a tool, this is an emotional 5 mile run. This is an emotional CrossFit workout that I'm about to give you, that the more frequently you can apply it, the emotionally healthier you're going to be. So, this is big too with the emotional fitness concept, is just like with PT, right? With physical fitness and working out, you can't work out once a year and expect to have a six pack. You
100%.
right? But it's same. But how many of us have an emotional fitness program? None
Yes.
of us do. And we wonder, man, I wonder why I'm so jacked up emotionally. Well, it's because you're not, you never go to the emotional fitness gym, right?
Yeah.
So go eighth is an exercise that people can apply every day. Okay, here's what it is. So A is acknowledge. Acknowledge the emotions that you're feeling. Now, if you had told me that 5 years ago, I'm like, okay, I know I have two. So I have 2 emotional vocabulary words called happy and sad and angry. Those are the only 3 words I know emotions, right? So you get this thing. I'm going to show you this real quick. It's called the emotion wheel. Boom. The emotion wheel. You can print it out on Google. Just print it out and stick it up on your refrigerator, stick it up in your office, wherever you're at. Boom, the emotion wheel. Because, dude, I didn't know, again, I had no emotional vocabulary, right? Which is part of emotional intelligence, is being able to accurately describe your emotions, which 68% of people cannot accurately identify their emotions in any given setting. So, boom, so this is one, how to acknowledge your emotions. Emotion wheel. The second tool that I recommend to people is, I use with all my coaching clients, my leadership clients and stuff. It's an app called the Mood Meter. The Mood Meter app. It's 99 cents on the App Store. It's not mine. I don't know whose it is, but it's fire, and it helps begin growing your emotional awareness and your emotional management, because it's not just what you're feeling, but why are you feeling that. So that's
Yep.
the A. Acknowledge your feelings. Put down all your emotions and feelings. Because if you don't, the way the brain works, you have to name it to tame it. You have to name it to tame it. If you can't name it and that emotion is just bouncing around inside of you, that's what causes stress and anxiety. Inside of us is an unnamed
Yeah.
emotion. It becomes an emotional knot in our emotional muscles that haven't been massaged. If we don't massage that emotional knot, it's going to turn into an emotional Charlie horse, and you're going to get emotionally hijacked, and nothing productive happens when we're emotionally hijacked and emotionally triggered. Okay, so A is acknowledge. P is permission. This big psychologist, 40-year psychologist, said that it takes the body 60 to 90 seconds to feel an emotion. So
Yep.
now, once you've done a list of all those emotions, now start at the top, set your timer on your phone, your watch, 60 to 90 seconds. Okay, I'm feeling angry right now. Allow yourself 60 seconds or 90 seconds, whichever you need, to feel angry for 60 to 90 seconds. What's it feel? Man, I'm so angry. Man, I'm so mad. I'm so angry right now. Allow that for 60 90 seconds. The alarm goes off. Boom. Now go to the next emotion on that list. Sad. I'm also feeling really sad. Okay, I'm going to feel sad. What does sad feel like? I'm going to let myself feel sad for 60 to 90 seconds. Boom, alarm goes off, feel the next one, etc., etc., etc. When you give yourself permission to feel that emotion, you're allowing your mind and your body to massage that emotional knot so that it doesn't turn into a Charlie horse. Okay, E is express. There's lots of research, lots
Yeah,
of background
100%.
study on
Yeah.
expressing your emotions through journaling. There's a lot of power in journaling, a lot of different ways to journal, but journaling. And then the D is discuss. Discuss your emotions and feelings with somebody else. Now, that's also tricky because you got to find somebody that's not judgmental and that is
Yeah.
also safe. And if you're not safe and comfortable with your own emotions, big, strong emotions, pleasant and unpleasant emotions, you're not going to be safe or comfortable with somebody else's big, strong emotions, uncomfortable, unpleasant emotions as well. So that's why this is one of my favorite quotes. Emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally.
I love it. I love it. And that's like a really clear, applicable thing. I want to ask you a question to the acknowledge piece. I'll, I've had a lot of people talk about how, like, I don't want to own, I don't want to claim, I don't want to name. There's this sort of cultural idea that if we give it a name, we're giving it power. And only recently have I noticed, maybe it's been happening more, but you work in this space more than I do. Only recently have I noticed people recognizing the power in, if I name it, I'm actually taking its power. I'm not giving it.
Bro, so check this out. So you are 100% correct. If you don't name it, trust, let's just see let me ask you, how's that working for you? Right?
Yeah.
How's it work? Like I'm going to tell you where that's going to go. In fact, here's a couple more quotes. Pain and bitterness that's not transformed will
Mhm.
be transferred somewhere else in your life.
Yeah.
Pain and bitterness that's not transformed will be transferred somewhere else in your life. The next thing, so to answer your question, here's something to realize about emotions. You are not your emotions.
Mm.
I am not angry. I am not sad. I am not depressed. I am not suicidal. I may feel sad. I may feel angry. I may feel depressed, but our feelings and emotions change all the time. They
Yeah.
change minute by minute. So it is you need to name your emotions, but that does not mean that you are your emotions. Very different. They are not your identity. Your
Yeah.
emotions are not your identity.
Yeah. I love that. Um, so then the other thing that came to my mind when you talked about aped is discuss. And that's the trickiest one for, I think, a lot of people. I love to talk. My wife doesn't listen to my podcast because she's like, honey, I hear you talk all day. I don't need to drive in the car and listen to you talk to other people more. I have no problem discussing how I feel. I'm an open book. If you ask me a question, I'm going to probably tell you more than you really wanted to know. But there's a lot of people who have a hard time doing that. And then the flip side of that is, I believe you'll agree with me in this, but discussing it with the person who's probably the perpetrator of the thing isn't always the best idea. To go to your spouse or your partner, your kid, and go, you drive me crazy, you did this, you did that, you did, right? Like, so just in using this tool, like, find a, it's almost like an accountability partner, but not, right? Like, it's a person who can be a sounding board and you can not necessarily dump on, but discuss, right? Because so many times we just dump on people and, okay, thanks for listening, I'm out. And there's no
Right.
conversation.
Sure. Right. No, absolutely. So to your first part of that, absolutely, there are going to be more people. So the introverts extroverts model, right? So you've got
Yeah.
introverts are going to be less apt or less comfortable in opening up maybe than an extrovert will. And again, that's a generalization. I know there's exceptions to
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, of course.
But so here's what I would tell somebody that is very, very private. And I respect and understand that privacy, that there's some people that like, hey dude, I'm a vault and I'm not letting anybody in. Okay, got it. So that's, and there's probably a reason that is that extreme, right? That's an
Yeah,
aspect of EQ or emotional unhealthiness that could be going on there. But here's what I would tell them is at least do APE, right? At least do the APE part and still express yourself, but just do it through writing.
yeah,
But it does take it to a whole nother level of healing if you are able to find somebody that you do trust, that is safe with your, some of your bigger or more intense emotions, and just allows you to express and hold that same space with you, and not judge or try to fix you, but just because dude, check this out. This is money. There's so much catharsis, bro, and healing in just validating and affirming somebody else's emotions.
so true.
Because there's so much therapy. Dude, in just this right here. Do I feel like Keith sees me, hears me, and understands me? Do I can I just answer, can I get a yes for all three of those questions? Dude, if I
Yeah,
can just get a yes for all three of those questions, then that's healing. Notice I didn't say agrees with me. I
yeah,
don't I don't need Keith to agree with me that I think bald guys are cool. I don't need you
yeah,
to agree with me on that. But do I feel like you hear me, understand me, and see me and value me just for who I am, exactly where I'm at, without trying to
yeah.
put lipstick on a pig or any of that stuff. Um, there's so much therapy, dude, in just that right there.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. There's a ton of value in that. And I know when I first started really learning about how to express myself and how to feel things, I mean, I spent so much of my time up until the time I got sober blaming everyone else for my problems, and parents, coworkers, bosses, wife, kids, and having all these explosions and anger and frustration, and it wasn't until I was able to really sort of start to express how I felt and really started digging in that I realized, oh, I'm in control of who I am and what I am. But like the unpacking of all of that and navigating that with my spouse and even with my kids. I mean, I've gone to my kids multiple times, even like with we started this conversation kind of about, church and Jesus and all that. I had to go to my oldest kids who were old enough to know and remember and say, I'm sorry, I've led you astray through my own pride, my own arrogance, and and modeled for them that vulnerability of like, I'm human. I don't get it. And the number of things that I've learned from my kids, I have 6 daughters, and the amount of value they put on what I say makes zero sense to me because I'm just some big idiot trying to figure it all out myself. But man, I've learned that like I have to be careful with what I say around my girls because they put a tremendous amount of value in what dad says. And despite my best efforts to convince them I don't know anything, they don't listen very well. And so the other thing that you said that I want to drive home for people who are listening is that I think that modeling piece that you talked about, I think that's tremendously undervalued in what that means, because just in my own upbringing and raising my own kids and experiencing things through my church and through different jobs that I've held and coworkers and teams I've been on, it doesn't matter what people say. It matters what they do. And watching them, we're always watching, right? And there's that meme floating around Instagram right now that's like, you might get 10 likes on a picture, but your story gets 300 views, and it's because nobody likes you, but everybody's watching you. It's like, there's some truth to that. Like, what we do is modeling for others what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, where we stand. Um, So I love it, man. Such good stuff. Such good stuff. I want to ask you, you posted on Instagram, the right question at the right time can change someone's life. And so I want to ask you if you remember what that question was for you.
Dude, I've had I collect questions. I'm a question junkie, dude. I
But
love.
this is why we get along so well.
That's right.
100%.
So there have been, dude, there have been so many, and I thank God for this. So many rightly timed questions that have unlocked that next little step for me, next little step for me. And I will tell you, so a recent, so just yesterday I was interviewed by a lady. She's a psychologist here in Colorado near Boulder, and she asked me a few different questions that I have never been asked before. And again, for me, it's so fascinating. So, like, number one, I love the question itself, right? Just the power of a question, the art of a rightly timed, rightly delivered question. But the next thing that I also jump onto is how did you how did you come up with that?
Mm.
Right? Where did that come from? So I need to chew on the question you asked because it's fire and I don't have an answer right now. I need to chew on that. But like how on earth did you come up with that? Like where did that come from? I have question envy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I want to develop that level of insight and depth and richness where I can really come up with some powerful, deep, introspective questions that can really challenge people and really
Yeah.
get the blood moving and stuff. So anyway, and so what has been a recent question? Uh, oh, okay. So this is the first one, and then she asked like three or four of them, which just one of them was fire, but one of them she said was, "What was it like being you as a child?" And I was like, I had never thought about what it was like being me as a child. And obviously in the context was, because I had told her, I've been a people pleaser addict for my, for all my entire life, except for 4 years ago. I've been emotionally needy. I've been emotionally codependent. I've been toxic positivity. I've had self condemnation, self hatred, insecurity, imposter syndrome, some depression,
Yeah.
some suicidal stuff. I've those, and that's just my starter kit of emotional dysfunction. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I've got, and wait, there's more. And so in that context, she's like, well, dude, based on all of that, what was it like being you as a child with that cocktail
Cocktail.
of
Yeah.
emotional dysfunction? So
100%.
anyway, it just hit me sideways. I was like, wow, man, I got to think about that. So anyway, that was
Yeah.
and again, there was a few more. Another one from the country perspective. She's like, what? Let's see, what was it? It was something like, what principle do you value the most in our country? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
as, and I, and again, I had to chew on it for a hot second. Now I had an answer. For me, it's freedom, right?
Yeah.
Was liberty and freedom for me was the principle that came up for me. But I just thought that was kind of an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah. I that caught my eye because I I'm a genuinely curious person. It's the reason I do this. So, um, and it made me think. I love thought provoking things, and I spend a lot of my social media energy, if it's not sharing what's happening with my family or my kids, asking questions because we're all reflections of our own biases and stuff. But like for me, it's those are the things that force you to look deeper. And I feel like the more I can, if I can help impact someone else's life in a way that causes them to look deeper and to discover things about themselves. Like when I wrote my book, I titled it "Choose Different" instead of "Choose Better." I had a few people like, "Oh, it should be choose better," and I was like, I don't know what's better or worse. We don't know what the outcome is. We only control the action. We don't control the result.
Mm,
So for me, it was like, I don't want to encourage people to choose better. I want them to choose different. Like if your life sucks, that's your fault because you made those choices. So just make different ones and let's see where it goes, right? Trust the process, trust in him, choose differently. So I love that question that you posed, is like the right question at the right time can really have impact. And so I feel like that encourages people to be curious, to be open, to continue dialogue, because by asking people questions, you're inviting answers you may not want to hear, right?
right.
Forcing you to be vulnerable. And so I love that
So,
post.
so here's a question for you.
Okay.
How can you, so I'm gonna ask it two different ways. How can you master curiosity?
Okay.
That's one question. The second question is, how can you develop your curiosity to become world class at it?
Hmm. Both very good questions. I think master, so they both require some thought, but I'll give you the top of mind sort of answer. So how do I master curiosity?
How can you? How can you master it?
Hmm. So for me, the thing that comes to me is really remaining open, right? So there's an emotional component to that of if I have questions that come to my mind, being courageous enough to ask them out loud, right? Um, I think working towards that, to me, it almost comes back to like seeking understanding, right? Like there's so much that happens in the world I don't get, I don't like. But I heard once that we fear that which we don't understand. And so that sort of triggered me into like, well, what happens if I seek understanding? What happens if I seek to not agree? Like you said, like I don't have to agree with you, but help me understand why you think that that political ideology is better than the others, or that's the one that you think is the best. And that to me requires sort of radical curiosity and the courage to ask the question. Because there's a lot of things I think that I don't ask. You're like,
Oh, sure.
oh, that's gonna piss them off. That's gonna I don't know. Um, and then what was the second one was how to use it like on a world class level?
No, how can you take your curiosity to a world class level?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Because if the, and here's why here so why did I ask? Here's why I asked. So if you already have a gift and a superpower at curiosity, so here's one of my tattoos that, for those folks that are listening on the your podcast, but there's a gift that's on fire on my left hand here,
Okay.
and it's Second Timothy 1:6 and 7 is on my knuckles, and it's fan into flame the gift that God has given you.
Yep.
Verse 7, for we have not been given a spirit of timidity or of fear, but of
Yeah.
power, of love, and a sound mind. So if that's already one of the gifts, you're one of your superpowers, how can you take that gift and superpower and make it world
Mm,
class?
yeah. I'd like to think that that's sort of so I started this podcast March of last year, uh under protest. I there's 7 million podcasts in the world. I mean, you've got one, your wife's got one, like everybody and their brother's got a podcast. My church has two. Like everybody's got a podcast. And I was in a seminar workshop in December prior, and we were talking about core values and gifts and purpose and sort of things like that. And I really kind of struck me that like I feel like for me, coming from a dysfunctional family, everybody does to some extent, but coming from a dysfunctional family, parents were divorced. Dad was remarried 3 times. Mom passed away when I was 3 because she was murdered. Like all these things that led me to being an alcoholic, not taking accountability for myself, really blaming the world for my pain, and overcoming that and being married to the same person for 25 years, having a bunch of kids who, homes and all those things. I was like, I feel like I have a message that I can share with people through the idea of like, if I'm continually open to how do I improve and how do I understand others. And it just kept coming to me like, you gotta do a podcast. And I was just like, I don't want to do a podcast. I don't want to, like, there's just so much noise. Like, how does it get found? Right. And at the same time, it was, I have to do this. So I did, and I launched it. And I'm like this, depending on when this episode airs, it'll probably be episode 170 or 175. And so I'm 2 years in doing this thing. No, a year and a half. And I get letters, and I get people that are like, you changed this path for me. You did. So it's like, is that world class? I don't know. Not yet, but it's impactful.
Right. Right.
So I think that's kind of how I feel about that. Like, that's where I kind of feel like that's headed.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, when I first started doing my podcast, I was asking my wife, I was like, what'd you think? She's like, babe, I don't listen. Like, I was hurt. I was like, what do you mean you don't listen? Like, this is my project, this is my thing. And she was like, I hear you talk all day. I don't need to listen to you anymore. And like, my own insecurities were like, well, if my own wife doesn't listen, who else is going to listen? Right. But that doesn't mean anything, because we're in the same bed together every night. She hears all, she knows all this stuff. She hears, and she knows, like, when she heard I was talking to you, she was looking at your Instagram with me, and she was like, man, I want to hear what this guy has to say. Like, so she doesn't listen to me. She'll listen to other people. She listens to other people. She's like, oh, this one looks good. Or like, friends of mine, I'll interview friends of ours, and she's like, oh, what did Eddie have to say? And I'm like, you can listen to yourself. I need the numbers. don't bother me about it. So that's awesome. I will tell you, the question that came into my mind when I read this on your Instagram was, someone asked me years and years ago, probably 10, 15 years ago, if I was living my life by default or with intention. And 100% it was by default. It was just wake up, go to work, do the thing, have a few beers, come home, try not to get divorced. But it wasn't like with the intention of being a present father, having a thriving marriage, impacting people's lives in a positive way. It was just trying to get through it.
Yeah.
And that question for me shifted everything. Everything.
Wow.
So I think it's a powerful thought that the right question at the right time can really change somebody, because from my experience, it's 100% true.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool, man. I think this is a really great place to wrap up. You crushed it. I had the best time.
Dude, likewise, bro. So great meeting you, Keith.
Yeah,
So
same.
great meeting you.